remarks. We will begin with the Council of Canadian Innovators for 5 minutes, please.
Good morning to the Chair, Vice Chairs, and members of the Standing Committee on Finance, and thank you for the opportunity to present today on Bill C-19 and the implementation of certain provisions in Budget 2022. My name is Nick Schiavo, and I'm appearing today as the Director of Federal Affairs on behalf of the Council of Canadian Innovators, and I'm joined today by CCI Vice President of Strategy and Advocacy, Dana O'Bourne. We are a national business council representing 150 of Canada's fastest growing companies. Our member companies are headquartered here in Canada, employ north of 52,000 employees across Canada, and are market leaders in the sectors of health, clean, and financial technologies, cybersecurity, and more. Following the release of Budget 2022, CCI celebrated the strong investments in Canadian innovation. We were pleased to see a focus on supporting Canadian innovators, bolstering intellectual property generation, driving clean economic growth, and doubling down on Canada's fastest growing sectors. These investments are a critical step to support Canada's rapidly growing innovation sector and ensure we generate true economic prosperity in the knowledge-based and data-driven economy. However, there is more the government can do to ensure our innovators can scale up and remain competitive in the fast-paced global economy of today. First, Canada's tech sector is facing a skilled talent crisis, which is threatening to suffocate innovative companies and slow new job creation. New strategies and investments to train, attract, and retain top talent are desperately needed, and if done right, these measures will improve Canada's innovation outputs. The shift to remote work, especially in the tech sector, means that Canada's skilled workers are now part of a global labor market where geography is no longer as important. Our domestic innovators are finding themselves in fierce competition with highly profitable foreign tech giants who can offer significantly higher salaries for the same pool of high-skilled workers. In April, CCI released our talent and skill strategy with 13 key recommendations to meet the talent needs of our country's fastest-growing companies. Broadly speaking, these recommendations present ideas for the attraction, generation, and retention of skilled talent in Canada. The federal government has started to work on valuable investments in upskilling, which is an important step forward on generating more skilled talent. Deploying funding in ways that create the maximum benefit for innovators should be a key priority in the months ahead. Recently, we have seen Canadian technology companies take the lead in developing their own skilled training programs. The federal government should support these types of company-led initiatives and tailor funding to ensure that we are generating skills to meet market needs. Moreover, the government's funding for skills development programs should be bolstered with policies to ease immigration pathways for skilled workers. Immigration is the fastest route to boosting supply of skilled labor in Canada, and the federal government should consider policies like a high-potential tech visa and a digital nomad strategy. The second item I'd like to speak about is the Scientific Research and Experimental Development Tax Incentive Program, lovingly known as SHRED in the innovation ecosystem. This $3 billion program is intended to incentivize research and development, but in practice, the program is overly complicated, bureaucratic, and restrictive. We were pleased to see in Budget 2022 that the government is moving ahead with a review of SHRED to modernize and streamline the program. We are currently undertaking the policy work to offer detailed and substantive recommendations for how to ensure that SHRED is fit for purpose. However, in broad terms, we believe that SHRED reform should focus on expanding the tax credit to include intellectual property as a key component of R&D. In the 21st century knowledge economy, patents and other forms of IP are the most critical sources of economic advantage for firms and economies. In 2020, more than 91% of the value in the S&P 500 came from intangible assets. And as the pandemic continues to drive a wave of digitization, algorithms, patents, data, and other intangible assets will only become more important. As Canada looks towards the post-pandemic economy of tomorrow, Canadian intellectual property and its acceleration by programs like SHRED will be a driving force. Including a patent box tax structure in SHRED would be a big step in the right direction to ensure that IP generated in Canada continues to reside in Canada. And we were pleased to see this idea mentioned in Budget 2022. We also believe costs associated with developing and prosecuting intellectual property should be eligible under SHRED. Lastly, but perhaps most importantly, SHRED eligibility criteria and processes should be streamlined and clarified. Today, many tech companies rely on costly consultants to help them navigate SHRED, and we would all be much better served if that money was spent on innovation outputs rather than a cottage industry of professionals who help navigate a thicket of confusing regulations. To conclude, we are pleased to see Budget 2022 offer a number of smart investments for Canada's innovation ecosystem. It's clear the government is thinking about how best to position the Canadian economy for the 21st century. To ensure they have the maximum impact on our shared prosperity, we look to the government to implement these policies in the most effective and strategic way possible. Thank you, and we look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr.